Hello, it's me, Annalisa, with my spiritual friend, and I am here for a special, I don't know, live predictions, but we're not doing personal predictions. You guys can ask questions about general upcoming 2022 kind of things. Just real quick, I do have my psychic development circle starting on Tuesday. There are still a few spaces available, so if you want to join, it's a really great thing. To learn how to to learn how to connect with your own intuition, to learn what to expect with your own intuition, what it feels like, how to grow it on your own. Like, I give you the tools to grow it on your own. I'm not saying like this is it. You always got to come back to me. I actually teach you how to connect in with your own energy and your own intuition, and develop your own intuitive language, because we are all intuitive beings. So it's a really, really great thing. If you want to join it, there's still some spaces. And that starts Tuesday evening, and I would love to have you guys there. So I want to say thank you for always loving and supporting me, and just being here and spending time with me. And I know it's a Saturday night. So if you're like me, well, I'm a mom, and so like I don't really go out much, right? And it's COVID, and yeah, so we'll get started. I looked at just a few things, and then I was hoping you guys would have more questions, and I had them written down somewhere. Who knows where, but well, I don't know where. We'll find them. Disorganization. Oh, I know why, because I flipped something and then wrote it somewhere else. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to be so disorganized. Okay, just a human, just a girl. Hi, KK. Let's see, we got light energy. Allie, hello, Ola K. It's good to see all of you guys, or y'all ladies. Okay, so someone, and I don't remember who, asked me to look at Beto and his run for governor against Abbott. Hi, Rosemary. It's good to see you. I've got some people here who were in my psychic development circles. You can call it intuitive development. It doesn't matter. Is there going to be another stimulus check? I don't feel like there will be, actually. We've had 4, right? Hi, Highway 138. It's good to see you. It's been a while. So I don't feel like there's going to be another stimulus check. Just tell me if there's been 4, and then I'll like get a little bit more on that. But so the first thing I want to look at is Beto, right? Beto O'Rourke is running for governor down in Texas. Texas is, everybody likes to go, oh, Texas is a red state. It's never, ever been, but it was Democrat back in the 70s, early 80s, right? So, and was it Ann Rice? Is that her last name for governor? She was a governor. She was a Democrat, and I lived in Texas when she was a governor. So it's not always been deep red. It's a little tricky down there right now. So this is my feeling, and I hate to say this, but when she asked, I get such a dead feeling around the energy of Beto. I get such a, like, not like he's dead, but just that feeling of, oh, all readings and divinations are for the purposes of entertainment only. I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, a financial advisor, or a therapist. If you need one of those, please seek those. Okay, done. So you think there's been 3? Okay, so I just don't feel the vibrancy that there used to be there. And there's the platforms he's running on are the energy grid that failed, which is like atrocious the way Texas has their own energy grid right now. It's sort of like they're not interconnected with any other states or any other stuff. They're like, oh, we're Texas. We can be on our own. We can do it all on our own. And so it's sort of, well, screwed them. And then they have this thing where they've got weird energy plans down there. It's just weird where they can, like, you don't, like here in New Jersey, it's like you have different companies, but there's like a set rate. They've got a variable rate. And so when the power went out, some people still had energy, but they were paying thousands of dollars for these bills. So that's one platform he's running on. And the other platform he's running on is the change in the abortion law in Texas. This is the part that I think is going to not really encourage people to get out. Because even some progressive people, so like the vote he really needs to get is people of color. And that's the truth. That's where he needs to pull his votes. And you can research that. That's where he really needs those are the people that need to come out and vote and to pull the Democrats in and get him in office. I don't see a huge margin between him and Abbott, but I see Abbott pulling ahead enough that he will be governor again for another term. Because I feel like there's enough people who, even though they're people of color, because of their faith, that's the part that sort of gets them to not want to vote. And it's disheartening, but I mean, how do you argue somebody's faith and their religion? It's really like that's the core of who a lot of people are. So it's really hard it's a hard argument. Ann Richards, that's what it was. Anne Rice is a writer, I believe. And so ditzy moment. So I don't think he will. But here's the weird thing, because my mom was like here and I was sort of looking at it and kind of feeling into it. And she's still in Texas. And I was like, so do they have term limits? Because I was looking at I thought, well, he's already been governor for 2 terms. And so we're both researching. And it's like, what? There's no term limits for governor in Texas. So I was like, okay, that's weird. And they were like, ching. In 2026, I think my sense is, and that's in between when they have an election. So I think the election would be whatever. 2026, I felt like, is when they're going to address term limits for governor in Texas and look at limiting the number of terms someone can be governor in Texas. And I feel like, because I don't know if things go off the rail enough, or it just, there's some sort of controversy. Are we going to be masked next year? I'm going to look at COVID. Don't worry. So that's my feeling around Texas. I don't feel like Beto is going to be that. I do feel like eventually Beto is going to do something and being working with the White House, but I don't necessarily feel presidential, just being I don't know, something with the White House. Your whole family is Texas or half. Anyway, my mother was from there. I cannot even visit it. So, it's interesting. And my mom and I were talking, and it's like, well, it's kind of always been that way. It's just more overtly, I don't know. It's hard to miss now. I joke that I'm from Gilead and I escaped. I don't know that I'd ever want to live there again. I gotta be honest. And I was always very proud of Texas. I still, kept my Texas phone number and everything. I was very proud of Texas for a long time. And now I'm kind of like, me, I really like Jersey, even though Jersey's a little screwy. We've got really high taxes. That's the other thing I want to talk about. So a couple of years ago, you guys asked me, we talked about the salt tax, or I mentioned the salt tax, and I'll link the video. I haven't linked it yet because I've got to go back and link it. But, and I looked terrible in the video. I didn't have any makeup on or anything, but I did talk about that the salt tax they would start to either reinstate it or look at it in 2021 and 2022. Well, this year they really started, or 2021, they really started discussing the salt tax and making movements forward on it. And I still believe they're going to work forward towards that in 2022. And I do believe the salt tax will be reinstated, because it is, it does harm the red states, especially New Jersey. So they're going to be changing the way that's done. All right. So we'll so this is what I get for COVID. So what's interesting is with this round of COVID, and they've sort of already said this, but so before it kind of started ramping up, before Christmas, I was looking at one of my daughters is having a really hard time in school this year. And so I was looking at I was throwing tarot cards, these ones actually, for myself, because that's sometimes where I need to find clarity, because it's hard to, when it's our own stuff. Hi, Van. So I was looking at when she would be back in, and I kept getting March, and I'm like, oh. And now it makes sense. So I actually feel like everything's going to be kind of calmed down from this round by the 3rd, 4th week of February and into beginning of March. I do feel like things are going to be more back to normal and I'm sorry to say this, 2024. It's still a couple more years, not like this bad. So 2022 feels like still kind of more of this stuff. It'll calm down. It'll go back to like normal summer. But I feel like I got to be honest with you, it's not about mask mandates, but I feel like people will be more inclined to wear masks when they're not feeling well now. Like you're going to see it more like you do in Asian countries, and you've seen it for a long time. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Donna. Like we've seen it for a really long time. Hi, Mallory. Where in Asia, they would wear masks when they were sick. And I know like even in New York, I remember for like years, I was like, why are those people wearing masks? Like I thought that they maybe had cancer, but now I understand, or had like, deficient immune systems, that they were probably sick and trying not to spread something. So I feel like that's going to become more commonplace. So why 2024 sounds this way to me? So I feel like by the third quarter of 2023 into the fourth quarter, they've developed a rapid test that's more sensitive, closer to what the PCR is. So let me explain this to you. So right now, if you don't already know, you probably already know this, but I'll do a little ditty to explain what I mean by this. So say if this is like, this little curve is like the time you get sick, and this is the peak of your symptoms and all of that, your exposures would be over here, right? So the PCR test can measure the viral load in your saliva or whatever in your system from like say this time to this time, and the rapid test it has a higher threshold to hit a positive rate here to here, right? So it's got to have more amount in it to hit that positive rate. What I feel like is going to happen, and this has happened with pregnancy tests, so if you have ever taken a pregnancy test, they're much more sensitive now, and they can catch a pregnancy a little bit earlier than the older home pregnancy tests. I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to develop a more reliable, rapid test that's easier to get a hold of by the mid to end of next year. And that to me is going to be like kind of a game changer. The other thing is, and I've said this since 2020, the very beginning of 2020, that I never felt like this was going to go away. I felt like it was going to become an endemic. And you can go back and look at like right around the time I've got some little 1 minute video where I'm like, I'm too sick to come to get back on. I'll be on next week. So I said that then, and I still feel like, obviously now that it's being proven by scientists, like, oh, we're in endemic. So it's always going to be around. So we're going to have COVID seasons, but I feel like they're going to be shorter than like right now we have respiratory syncytial virus season, which is right now. And we have flu season, which is right now. But flu season's a really long season. And I feel like the COVID seasons, I feel like there might be 2 seasons in the year, but they'll be short. They'll be short-lived. But it doesn't mean there won't be pop-up illnesses here and there, but for the most part, it'll be a short-lived. And I do feel like, again, we'll be getting boosters or recommended. I know there's a lot of controversy over mandates for boosters and all of that stuff, or mandates for COVID vaccine. I mean, there's mandates for seatbelts, there's laws for seatbelts and stop signs and speed limits. And I mean, I know there's lots of people who are like my grandfather who would drive on both sides of the road and say like, I pay taxes for both sides of the street. But I don't know. I tend not to argue, whatever. So that's what I get on COVID. So I feel like it's not that it's like, I don't think that this is the last wave, so to speak, but I feel like it's going to become more manageable than it has been. So I want to explain why sometimes like the things we get, like before COVID hit in 2018, I was doing a blessing on a friend's restaurant. And I'm going to totally plug it here because it's really good. And if you're in the Westchester area, you should check it out. It's in Austining, New York, and it's called the Tasty Table. But I was doing a blessing on her. Like they had finished most of the construction. So I went in to do a clearing, kind of clear the energy. And she was asking about like what I saw for the business. And I was like, oh, I see a lot of takeout. She's like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh yeah, this is our little takeout corner. And it was like maybe 4 feet long, the little counter. It was like with like a little thing that people could grab pre-made stuff. And I was like, and I saw literally like a 50-foot counter, like in my mind's eye. And I'm like, Really? I'm seeing a lot more. I think what I was seeing was COVID, because that's basically they partnered with the Galata House, which is for to make meals for people in Westchester County who couldn't afford meals, and they did a lot of it. They did like volume of it. So I think that that's what I was seeing. I'm busy. It's okay, Buggy. Doing a live. It's okay, sugar. I know you feel yucky. Are you gone? Closing the door. This is the noisiest door ever. I also kept asking a friend, because I kept asking about one of my kids doing homeschooling. I was like, and this was 2018, 2019. I was like, are you sure she's not going to do homeschooling? Well, homeschooling, basically. So we get things in different ways. We don't always get like, this is a clear thing that's coming in. So that's why I'm like, I see these sort of things. It's kind of a little bit more vague, but I don't really, that's just the feelings and the way I'm getting things. It's a really like, Lisa, it's a family owned. Lisa came up with everything. It's really good food. You won't be disappointed. Okay, so let's look at, what else did I have on here? Oh, I was looking at stocks. So the stock market is hard when people are like, well, predict the stock market, because the stock market's always going to go like this. The stock market, just by nature, it's emotionally driven. So when and if you're investing, and I am not a financial advisor, but these are the feelings I get, is like, try not to run with the emotion of it. Like, it's going to get really exciting, and try not to like panic all the time, because some of it is just like, you got to just like sit and hold and go. So crypto. This is again a couple years ago, and I'll link the thing, but I saw crypto and I talked about two different currencies. And one, I said something about 7-Eleven. I don't remember what it was, but I talked specifically about Bitcoin. And I said, I don't know why I keep seeing like MasterCard. So MasterCard's doing something pretty big with Bitcoin right now. So I think that's pretty cool that I saw specifically MasterCard, but I didn't understand what that meant at the time. So I'll link that. You can see that too. I still feel like Bitcoin is like, it's going to be a little bit like this, and people are still going to be kind of whatever, but I feel 5 to 6 years is where it's going to be like a pretty normal thing to trade, a pretty normal thing to invest in, and used much more regularly for currency. Gold and silver, I feel like, are stable. But when I was actually watching somebody else's, because I'm like, I don't really know like what even to look at, because nobody's really asked me what they want me to look at. And it's really hard for me to just ask and get stuff. Like, I need you guys to ask me the questions. I don't know why. So I was like, well, but the other way I get information is like, if I'm watching somebody else's and I'm like, oh yeah, nope, I don't agree with that. I don't feel that. So then, but while I was watching it, I heard lithium. Lithium is going to be something that you really, and I didn't even know you can trade this or buy it or anything, but I heard lithium, and by virtue copper, because, and I feel like, again, that one's like 6 years out, where it's going to be like, right now, it's not that great because there's an overabundance of it, but I feel like about 6 years out. So it's like, if you buy now and just hold steady with it, you would probably be okay. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so you do your research, do what you want to do. It's just feelings I have. This is for entertainment purposes only. So, and what did I wrote down? Lithium, and I wrote 2,600, and I don't know what that means because it's not near that amount right now. I just felt like it's a good long-term investment, and same thing with copper, because copper is a wonderful electrical conductor and electric cars, and it's going to be way more like, everything's sort of moving towards, I feel like by 2028, really heavily moving towards everything being electric versus, and it doesn't mean there's not going to be any gas powered cars or any, but like gas in homes and stuff, but it's all new home builds. I feel like we'll start to have like solar panels and things like that. Every time I hear housing is in a bubble, I'm like, no, it's not. Now, in 2007, I was working at a clinic, and I remember somebody was talking about getting a loan, and that it was a variable rate loan. And I thought in my head, I was like, that's the dumbest thing you could ever do. And I think I said that to the person, like, stay away from that. That's just a horrible idea. And I actually dated someone, maybe it was in 2006. Yeah, it probably would have been 2006. Just for a couple months, and he traded money. And I remember seeing like him scrambling, like getting a vision of him scrambling for, uh, like looking like he was panicked or whatever. So bubble popped in 2008, and it popped because of like that housing market. It's not falsely inflated right now. I don't feel like we're going to hit. I don't feel like we're going to hit like where there's a big downfall because of the housing market. So that idea that when you hear like random ads and stuff on YouTube, because I hear stuff, I'm always like, oh, it's such garbage. Like, why are you selling and pushing that? So I don't feel like we're in a housing bubble. I do feel like there's going to be a slow, there's not going to be that massive scramble in demand for houses the way there was last year. It's still going to be fairly competitive. And April keeps coming to my head right now. So I'm not really sure if there's like a little bit of I mean, that's like sort of logical about like, that's when sales start to pick up in the spring because people don't want to move in the winter. So solar panels are going to become more affordable and more commonplace. And again, they're not going to be these big ones that they have on the house. They're going to be, and you're starting to see them more now. I think Tesla's inventing them or working on them, but they're going to be more like what shingles, about the size of a shingle. The other thing is I felt like they're going to become better at placing them. They're going to become more efficient, and so they're not going to have to be over the whole entire roof of the house. I mean, I know that they're not really now, but it's like they're literally going to know, like, oh, just this section needs it, and like this will be enough to cover blah 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 whatever, because they're going to be so much more efficient. They won't need as many. I don't feel like California houses are going to crash. I don't feel like I don't see it. I gotta be honest with you. I do see like a more leveling off, but I don't see a crash. It's not going to be like 2008 where everybody's upside down in their loan. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be a leveling off. I'm looking at like, so new home builds might slow slightly, and I keep getting pulled to the southwest on that. But it's nothing that is like, I mean, I remember listening to my father-in-law would be like, "Oh, the market's doing terrible." I'm like, "What the fuck is he talking about? The market's doing great." Like, I just think maybe I get it in a different way, but I don't feel that. I don't get that feeling. I don't feel like yeah, I just don't feel that big housing bubble thing again where everybody's upside down. So, Leo sign, if you get that and you feel that about California, you are entitled to your own feelings, your own interpretations. I just don't get that. Happy 2022. Cheers. La Croix. Well, that's nice. Thanks for the information. Let's see. I don't know. What do you guys want to know? Because I was like, I don't know. Let's see what else you guys want to ask about. What was the one thing that you asked about? And I was like, let me look at it in a minute. I don't want to do private readings, but I'll do general readings. I do feel like, So everybody always usually asks about like, is there going to be another civil war? Is like, it is the, like, everything is really divided right now, but 2026 comes up for me as being like where things start to kind of calm down a little bit and stop being so crazy. Oh, I got this. I never do celebrity predictions. You guys know that, but I got this and I thought it was kind of sweet. So I'm saying it for her. If you guys want to know about anybody else. Um, so Drew Barrymore, I don't know why, but I like whenever I see her and she's interviewing people, she always just has such a like there's such a sweet innocence in a way about her. Like even though she's had a very bumpy childhood and like I don't know if it's like wanting to be loved and embraced. It's like being in love with love. There's this romantic energy about her, like just I don't know, but it's just very sweet. And I feel like she's going to marry, and well, not marry again, but I feel like it'll be like a Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn kind of union for her in 3 years. And I feel like she meets him through friends. I don't feel like, or like some sort of function, but it's like a personal in-person thing. It's not an online dating app thing. She's said that she's on dating apps. And I feel like that is because I feel like she does a lot of her like self-concept work. You know, we talk about with manifesting, you guys know I talk about this a lot, that there's a lot to be said about self-concept and doing the I ams. And it still feels like this feeling of looking outside of herself for validation and acceptance and feeling truly worthy. She is such a talented and amazing individual. And, you know, celebrities and people are just like us, right? So like sometimes we can't see clearly who we are because we've gone through so many crappy programs in our childhood that need to be reprogrammed. And I feel like that's what she does over the next 3 years is really like she's doing a lot of her work and all, like juggling all the different plates that she has with her creative endeavors. But I feel like in 3 years is when she meets this person and it's like, it will literally knock her socks off. Like it's just sort of love at first sight. Hi, Devry. Happy New Year. Well, can like her question was, when will Congress truly care about Americans and their well-being? And then like jokingly, my guys were like, when hell freezes over. The dollar will not be replaced. I don't feel that at all. I do feel like we will move towards, more of the electronic currency type stuff, but the dollar is not going to be replaced. It's just, I don't want to say nostalgia, but like, it's not going to be replaced. So like when you hear those, like in the certain spiritual communities, they talk about like, oh, there's going to be a reset of the dollar. Will we have water shortages this year? Hold on. Let me go back to this where she says the Americans and well-being. So I feel like there's shifts, and I've said this for a while now, in 2028 is when things sort of shift and it becomes a little bit more, and they're saying right now, desperation out of like, infrastructure and really needing to like look at our water supplies and our transportation and all of that stuff is like 2028 becomes a big shift. I don't want to seem cynical, but I don't feel like the government's ever going to be a bleeding heart caring so much about people, because at the end of the day, it's still like running a business and they have to look at, I don't know. I just don't feel like it is. I feel like there's always going to be, I don't want to say cynical, but some kinds of corruption or looking at power, interest based on lobbyists and things like that. I don't know what you mean by are my thoughts spiritual. Hello, Ali. Um, if anybody has any other celebrities you want me to look at, oh, I can look at Britney Spears. I did get like, even though she seems like she's kind of like, what is going on with her? She's like 38. Why is she doing all these things? Think about it this way, like she didn't really ever have a period like that most of us had from the age of like 18 to 25 where you just sort of got to experience who you were without anybody being over you and sort of figure out like everything, and get more comfortable with yourself. So she's like sort of going through that right now. So good for her. Um, I don't think it'll ever be as bad as Trump again. Um, and I do feel like there will be more women in office. But I just feel like to make that blanket statement of like, oh, they're just going to care about everybody and everything's going to be, it's like, I don't think it's ever really going to be like, I think they're going to try and do what's, there might be more of a middle ground, or I don't know, but there, it's like sort of like trying not, it's hard to explain because it's like you're looking at millions of people that they have to look over. They can't make sure everybody is perfect all the time, but I do feel like things are going to be moved more towards equity. And I talked about starting like around 2026. I think this was a couple of years ago where I talked about like looking more at reparations, and things like that. But it's like, it's not that pie in the sky dream. Like and it's never been that way, not since, the beginning. That's why we have to look at reparations, right? Um, the dollar's not going to be replaced. Will Roe v. Wade be upheld? I do feel like it will be, but I also feel like the Supreme Court kicked it back to Texas. So there's going to be individual states where it's going to be harder than other states. But I also feel like on the surface it's harder, but it will get, I don't know if it's repealed or sort of airied in a way. Like the way it's there right now, it's not a hard and fast, and it can be challenged. I think what's going to happen is a lot of women are just going to go to other states, but I don't think there will ever be any like full across the board in the United States where you can't have an abortion. Hi, Horseman. Welcome. Okay, sorry. So I don't feel like Baseman asked about, or is it Baseman? Yeah. If the vaccine will hurt people long term, I don't feel that it will. Um, I was watching something interesting. I feel like there are going to be long-term side effects. So like what I was watching was basically somebody talking about long-term. We're finding out now that there's long-term side effects from even, um, you know, developing or becoming sick with other things. So like not from the vaccine, but from the viruses themselves. So mononucleosis, when people get mono, they're showing now that there is a correlation between certain times of your life catching mono and multiple sclerosis. So they're finding more connections and correlations between us, certain viruses, even colds and flu and everything else, long-term issues down the line. So no, I don't. And not on a whole, right? So, but I feel like there's going to be the outliers that might have something, but I think that that's with anything. But no, I don't. I feel like, I mean, I got my vaccine. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think, oh no. And there are certain things that I will go, yeah, that doesn't seem right. I won't, not, um, but intuition doesn't tell me that that's what's going to happen. Will Kim K ever get back with? No. I don't think it's a stunt with Dave. And this is what I'm going to say. Celebrities are people too. They all have their own story. We all have belief systems that we were taught about ourselves that create dysfunction. If you look at her history of people that she's dated, like even that Chris guy that she was married to for like what, 72 days? Like if you just watched their relationship, he was really kind of, at least the way they cut the film. So again, that is TV, right? So they can edit however they want and make somebody look like a douche if they're not a douche. But energetically, I just was like, wow, he's kind of a, she picks people that are, she leans towards being codependent. That's the best way I can put it. So I don't think it's a stunt. I think she likes to be in a relationship. I think she likes the validation that it gives her. I think she likes connecting with somebody emotionally. So you can't fault her for it, but I don't feel like it's to get him jealous. I feel like that's her personality, to like to constantly be in a relationship. I don't feel like they'll ever get back together. I feel like once she closes the door, she's done. I do feel like, so you're asking about like otherworldly beings, if there'll be disclosure of them. I do feel like there will be more and more that ekes out. But I feel like it's a while before, like, it's so obvious you can't ignore it. Like they're just walking around with us like years and years. I mean, look how awful we are to people who are in the LGBTQ community and transgender. Look how awful we are to people of color. Like, do you really think we're going to be able to handle something from another planet and not like destroy them? I mean, it's just, I don't think humans are evolved enough yet to safely do that. But I do feel like the information it'll be like, oh, another UFO sighting, can't, that kind of thing. Yeah, same bad patterns for Kim. Was the Roswell incident true? I do feel like it was. Yeah. Will the birth rate in our country fall? Immediately I got, not because of the shot, but I do feel like it's slowing. I feel like it's not about falling. I just feel like it's slowing. Will Jennifer and Ben marry? Y'all remember that I told you, if you were here like years ago, I had a dream where I was talking to them both on the phone. Like, remember when you could have a party line? When you had landlines, and I was like switching back and forth, and he was like, they were really upset. Like he was upset. It was like a miscommunication, like an inability to communicate. And she was upset. And there was something about his mom involved in the mix. And like, not that she's a bad woman, just, I just feel like there was like, they were young, whatever. 2 weeks later, they broke up. I do feel like they'll be together. I feel like they have a better understanding now, and they're both older. I don't know, like she is a hopeless romantic. I don't know that they'll rush to get married. My sense is that it's sort of like just really enjoying the time and approaching it differently and developing a stronger base instead of being rushed to get married, because they've all been married. And it's sort of kind of bringing it back just to the foundation of a relationship. Devery, I don't know if they'll make themselves world stage in 2026, like I said, because I mean, look how awful we still are to LGBTQ community, to transgender people, and they're in that community. But specifically, how difficult of a time we have with that. How difficult of a time we have with people of color still, and people from different religions. So like now, like throw in the mix somebody from a being from another planet entirely. I mean, people still don't even think like that animals have souls and stuff. So what do aliens do on other planets? I'm curious. I don't know. I think they still do the same things we do, just in their like, like eat, have relationships, have jobs. I don't think they're that different from us. I hate to say it. Um, no, for Chloe taking Tristan Thompson back, I think it's fascinating that people are so fascinated by the Kardashians, and they all have like. It's so interesting to me, like this need. I mean, who doesn't feel like they want to be loved? But I don't know. I don't think they're horrible people. No, I don't feel like she will. I feel like she's trying to figure out how to like amicable co-parenting, and not feeling like it's again like, will I ever find the one? Horseman my entire life. Have I ever seen or encountered? I've seen a lot of stuff, so I don't know. They do more like certain beings, more like telepathic type stuff. I wouldn't say I've seen a little green man running around. I don't really like. There's going to be readers and people who totally connect with like I'm into the Pleiades and all of that stuff. I like that's not really my thing, because I'm sort of like I'm here to have an experience here on Earth as a soul and a human here on Earth. So it's like, yes, I totally believe that there's aliens that exist, and other beings, and yes, I totally believe that other beings have figured out how to surpass the speed of light and have better technology than we do, and are more advanced in many ways than us, because it just seems asinine to think that literally in all of the solar systems and galaxies, we're it, and fairly ignorant. But I don't spend time really trying to connect with. I know people who do. I guess I just feel like there's enough to try and deal with here, like energetically, that I'm trying not to reach out to other galaxies. Because I mean, I guess I could if I focused. What's the Skinwalker Ranch? Will Bitcoin reach 500,000? What are they at right now? Do you mind telling me? Because then that's like sort of like, I don't, it feels like it's a ways down the way, but it also feels like, I feel like it's going to run the way more, like companies run their stocks, where there'll be stock splits, because it'll be so out of reach that it wouldn't be worth trading if it was that high. So it feels like it'll split several times before it would hit that. It's at 41. I feel like it, like by the time it hits like 100, it's going to split. And so whatever you have, like if you have it, hold on to it, it splits. But I don't know that 500K would be, it just doesn't feel like, yeah. Like the only way it would hit that is if the way inflation is, and then it wouldn't be as valuable, right? So it just feels like it splits. Oh, an old town. I don't think it's like a, let me see what you called it again. I don't feel like it's a black hole. So I don't think that that's the right word for it. And I wouldn't even necessarily, so like maybe you call it like a portal, but I wouldn't even call it that there because it doesn't feel like it would be there. Um, Look, I don't think that they're all living on another planet and traveling, and like, I do feel like they're probably here. Gotta be honest. Um, I think they're better at blending in, and I don't believe in like the whole lizard people and all of that. I feel like there's bases here, much like we have military bases in other countries. I would love to have a photographic memory. Instead, I have a memory closer to what like an ADHD person has. I'm constantly having to set timers and have lists and everything else. Literally, I have to set a 4-minute timer so that I don't get lost while I'm making food. It's like, um, how useful is my gift? Well, I don't know. People here can ask if I feel like my gift has been useful to them. Hi, Rose. How are you doing? I hope you're feeling well. Is anything going to be done about gun violence? So that might not even really come into play until like 2030. And it feels like because the kids that grew up with it are now adults at that point that have like it's been going on for so long that they start to make the changes and make adjustments. And there's still enough people in the voting pool that didn't grow up with having to worry about doing lockdown drills and all of that. But it feels like by 2030 that starts to drop off a little bit and it becomes a bigger thing. But it takes a while. I got to be honest with you. I do feel like there'll be an attempt, but I feel like it's like a foiled attempt. I do feel like a lot of things are going to come to light. Remember, I said a long time ago, like I think it was, I don't even remember. There's a video somewhere. I'll try and find it and post it. That I had a dream about, or I had a vision of Trump being arrested. And I've always like, I feel like that's linked to the Southern District of New York. I feel like things are starting to like kind of peel apart and fall and start to be known more and more. And I also feel like I just feel like there's going to be a shift in the way people approach things. And I don't know any other way to say it because I don't understand what it means. If it means that like some of these people are going to be like sort of shunned or what. I feel like there's going to be an attempt, but it's going to be foiled or not. It's going to be lackluster. Will Facebook or metaverse not exist because of government? No, I think that they will have their own they're not going to not exist because like let's like face it, Mark Zuckerberg likes money and money and more money. He's an individual that is driven by money and not really the best needs of people around him. I would not like to be friends with him at all. um, at all. He has a lot of self-serving interests. I do unfortunately feel like there's going to be some things that come out about it where it's like harmful and damaging, not but to people. But I still feel like there's going to be an iteration of it. I don't feel like it's going to be like we're not doing this because it's the worst thing ever. I feel like it's going to have regulations. They're going to and unfortunately it feels like learn as you go sort of things rather than like foreseeing what needs to happen. It's going to be like hindsight is 2020. So things are going to happen. I don't feel like Wendy Williams is on drugs. I do feel like she has a lot of, again, like self-concept stuff that she hasn't really ever dealt with. And I do feel like there's a lot of triggers for her being at work. And so it's like she's going to retire from the full-time day in and day out kind of work. I still feel like she'll be in the public eye, but more sporadically for her own mental clarity and health and sort of like finding balance. I didn't understand this one. Will Mexicans safely and economy will get better? What does that mean, Allie? And then I'm probably going to bounce off here in about 10 minutes because an hour is longer than it needs to be. If anybody has any questions. So for me, Horseman, I will say that I feel like for me, my gifts have been helpful because, well, I'm a reverend. I first of all, it's helpful to me because of the life that I grew up in. It's always given me a sense of security and safety. And like I always joke that like dead people are easier to set boundaries with than the living. It gives me a sense of comfort. And then understanding like how I can see other people, it's offered me a lot more compassion for people. I love what I can do. I love that I can also help connect other people on their own spiritual journey and find their own sense of peace and empowerment. Because it's not just about like, oh, look what you can do. What a magic trick. It's like, yes, and I can teach you to be intuitive too. I can help you connect in on your own stuff too. I can help you find a sense of peace and comfort. I don't know. It's my thing, like some people are really freaking good at, creating art, or some people are really good at figuring out the financial stuff or figuring out, they're just amazing chefs or whatever. Everybody's got their own thing that they're good at. This is something I think I'm good at. And thank you for the compliment. I can sense how people are before I've spoken to them. What's interesting is so we talk about being sensitive. I went to go to, this is last month. I don't even remember now. I'm a part of it's called Mana Energy Collective, and it's out of Maplewood, New Jersey. They have a physical space. And I went to go, she was doing a little soft opening welcome for people to see the space and connect. And I wanted to go support the woman who created it. Her name is Kristie Goldstein. And like, I knew where the space was, but like not as familiar with the area. So I drove past it and I was looping back around and I noticed my nose was getting itchy. And I thought, this is weird. Like my nose feels scratchy and itchy and my throat was a little bit itchy. And I was like, I literally just felt fine. And I was like, I had been fine all morning and like just right before. And I went in and she's like, oh, I have a little scratchy throat. My nose is itchy, but I took a COVID test and I'm negative. So I can feel energies of people before I even go in there. I had lived in an apartment in Hoboken for a while. And there was a period of like 3 weeks where I was horribly depressed and I couldn't figure out because there was no reason I should have been. It was out of nowhere. And I don't have clinical depression or anything like that. I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. And then I talked to my neighbor and he was like, I've been so depressed the last 3 weeks. My mom died 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I feel people's stuff before without knowing it. I don't have to be around them. I just pick stuff up. I don't really like living in apartments for that reason. I like single family abodes. I don't know, but I don't know any different. So this is who I am. And I'm just sort of starting to discover how much I feel of other people's stuff. The cartel violence and government. Is that going to get better? Do you want pie in the sky or do you want truth? No, it's not. It's sort of like, I don't want to say part of the culture because it's really not the culture, but it's just feels like, until laws around drug regulation change here, it doesn't get better there. So until the entire country is like, legal weed and everything else like that, I don't feel like it gets better there. And it's not to say that the cartel is just about weed, but it's like that's a big driver. So I just feel like until that happens, it doesn't get better there. What's weird is like feeling like changing the business to be more on the up and up and grow and sell legally. So here's the thing about the spiritual veil. The spiritual veil is not one big veil that sits over the entire world. The spiritual veil is your own, it's like own personal thing. So the more open you are to it, the thinner it gets. The more closed you are to it, those close people are still not connecting in and still not getting it, right? So the veil is really a personal thing. It's an individual thing. So everybody's gets thinner, like everybody's may be thinning, but mine may be thinner than yours, right? Or than the person over here, and the person over here may just like not even get it at all. Why do old souls choose a hard life path? I don't think it's that they're choosing a hard life path. I think it's that, so like, think about a learning process as a spiral. So it's not a peeling of layers, it's a spiral, right? So you loop back around and you relearn it and you learn it in a different way and you learn it again and again and again. So it's like you might have a harder, because you're learning something on a totally different level, right? Just like you take pre-calculus and then you take calculus and then you take advanced calculus and then whatever goes beyond that. Like, so it's still, you get the basic core principles. And as you loop back around, you're going to take a little bit harder and a little bit harder. That said, there's this lie about light workers, like, oh, you chose to come in and have a terrible life. And that's why you're a light worker and open to your intuition and psychic powers and blah, blah, blah. Well, no. I think you're open to your intuition and your psychic powers because you had trauma. And so it's like when someone is born deaf or blind, their other senses sort of heighten as a way to protect them in their environment. So you develop your intuition as a way to protect you in your environment, because you need to learn to be able to read. If you come born in a very toxic, abusive home, you need to be able to read somebody else's energy and read what's going on with them so that you can remain in a protective state. That's my thoughts on that. Well, I mean, virtual reality sort of already is a hobby for people, just on a different level. Do I think it's going to be, I do think that there's going to be people who are, it's going to be more popular like 2024 and beyond. And I do feel like, I do feel like it's going to come into a dating aspect kind of thing of like getting to know people in a different way. But I don't feel like, and I do feel like there's going to be people who are like just now where it's like, oh, you're on the basement in your parents' house, like playing video games. I do feel like there'll be an aspect of, there are people who are sort of like addicted to it and into it, but I don't feel like it's going to be like we do everything virtual reality. I don't think it necessarily sucks, because I've also learned to go, oh, that's their stuff, it's not mine. Like, I mean, it's just like, again, like looking at somebody and they have brown hair and blue eyes or whatever. Oh, look, they have like a coat on today. Because on the opposite end, like happiness feels so amazing to me. And I can feel like it takes it to another level when you look at somebody's artwork too, because like Degas is kind of a depressed artist. And there was some other artist that I saw at the Met that had like, they created all these tiny little, like tiny clothes, like everything was like miniature scale. They were the happiest creator I have ever. It was like, I didn't want to leave the exhibit. It made me feel so happy and full of joy. So, I don't know. Will robots end up turning us in the end? No. I think the potential could be there, but I feel like there's enough fail safes that they're going to put into it. And also, like, we create our reality, right? So the thing that I do, because that used to kind of get to like give me a hard time, Horseman, when you talk about like your own nervousness. The thing that I do, part of that comes from like your fear of abandonment, or at least for me, it comes from my fear of abandonment. And like I've had friends like totally ghost me and like all of that. Like it's like, but it's like recreating our own stuff, whatever. We choose the people to do that, all of that. The thing I do is I just remind myself in those instances, it's fine. This is their stuff, like whatever. It's all okay. I do a lot of that. Hi, Ola K. Will DACA pass? Yes, but with some different stipulations. And it feels like it's like there's delays. So it's like an extension. And then, but I don't feel like it'll be totally next. So, you have a big heart because you didn't grow up with much, and people who usually they find that people that have a lot of trauma end up having a lot of empathy and a lot of resilience, and are very compassionate beings. And you know what it is to struggle, so it's hard to watch somebody else struggle. But understand that you can't make other people happy. You can help, but drowning in order to do so is not very good either. So maybe 2022 will bring you balance and learning how to do that. Will there ever be a cure for cancer? I do feel like there will, but not, it's like, so you're looking at cancer as being like one thing, and it's not. There's so many different types, and there's so many different, like, yes, cancer is just one cell gone rogue when it splits, right? But I don't feel like it'll be like across the board, like, oh, this cures all cancers. It feels like they start with one and another and another. And it feels like something that would be like an mRNA vaccine. So not like the way Gardasil is now, where you take, and there's one other one for HPV, to prevent it. It does feel like an after the fact, like it goes in and attacks the cells. I feel like they will start treating it much differently. You know, everybody gets upset with medicine when they're like, they keep changing it or what they're finding. It's like, well, but that's the way science is. It continues to evolve. The more knowledge we have, the more we can evolve and change and shift. The more data we get back, the more we understand things. So it does change and shift. You know, they used to think that like bloodletting was a good thing. Are you going to get mad because they're not still bloodletting and they decided that bloodletting wasn't a good thing anymore? I mean, it's like, we evolve and we change. The more knowledge and data that we receive, computers do that too. May, I'm not doing personal readings today. I'm just doing some general stuff. So yeah, I think there's going to be like overall this year is going to be, it's not going to be as terrible as last year and the year before. I mean, last year was like, it was tough. It's going to be still a kind of another like dragging through the muck, but not quite as bad. Travel wise, I feel like travel will be better in 2023 and things opening up in 2023. And again, 2024 feels more back to normal. But I feel like all industries are shifting right now. And it's more about, rather than inability because everybody's frozen, it's more about quality of life and corporations needing to understand mistreatment. You know, if we look at like, so payment getting better, changing like what do you call them, benefits, like I'm trying to think, I'm sorry, my brain just went for changing benefits, changing like vacation and time off and sick pay and all of that and protection and all of that. That's going to change. You know, corporations like to like sit there and be like, oh, we're not making money, but like, how can you pay your CEOs $27 million as a bonus? Like, I do feel like we are going to be changing, and it's not this year. This is just coming down the pipe, like by like 2025, the way corporations are allowed to lobby government. You know, right now corporations are considered a person, and I feel like that's going to be changing down the road by 2030, not 2030. That's a long way away. Thank you, Horseman. I mean, look, I try to not be biased there. Look, I do have my personal opinions, right? But I also recognize that if you listen to people when they're arguing for or against something, first of all, I'm not going to argue with a lot of people because, I mean, if they've got their mind set on something, it's going to be said. It doesn't matter what I say. A lot of people are coming when they're so hell-bent on something, it's usually from a place of fear. And I have a soft spot for that because that's, you know, most people, if they're being in an attack mode or anything else, I was a nurse before this. Like I trained how to like deal with people in their like scariest, painful moments, and physically and emotionally painful, day in and day out. So I do have a lot of compassion. I do have my opinions. I think vaccines work. I got pertussis from a baby at work. It was when I was in the NICU. They were in isolation and the resident was in the room. And the baby was desatting and the resident wasn't doing anything. They weren't suctioning. They weren't doing anything. So I walked in and the resident, and I was not gowned up. I should have been, but I wasn't because I was like, I had already sat and watched this kid desat. And I was like, I'm just going in because I'm not going to have a kid die on me because they're so full of secretions. And I suctioned and everything else. And the resident was like, no, you're supposed to be gowned up. And I was like, yeah, well, you're not doing your job. Sorry, but it was the truth. And 7 days later, I had pertussis, and it was the most secretions I have ever. I kid you not. I felt like I was drowning. It was so much phlegm and gross, and I've never, ever had anything like that. Now, I had titers that drew this was probably in nursing school, titers drawn that said I was still immune, but immunity wanes. So I promise you I got boosted after that. I believe in vaccines. I don't believe that we should suffer from illnesses needlessly. I believe in medical treatment. I do believe that it is like, we don't know. We've never seen this before. So we're going to do something one way. And then when we learn that that's not really necessary, we're going to change it. That's the way medicine's always been. So if you're like, well, it should be this way right away and you should know everything, it's like, You can't. And I understand why people are scared about vaccines. I get it. I can see both sides of it. Will New Jersey taxes become lower because now I know New Jersey taxes are just fucking insane, right, Gia? So I talked about this at the beginning a little bit about salt taxes, and I mentioned this a couple years ago. So I do feel like salt taxes will be reinstated. I don't feel like they're going to necessarily go lower. But I do feel like there's going to be more assistance from a federal level, because I also, and this is going to be like years down the road. This is not an immediate thing. The way New Jersey taxes are right now for education are going to change. I do feel like there's going to become more federal assistance so that educational, like property taxes from education, are not going to be such a large portion. But I don't necessarily feel go down, but maybe not rise quite as much is the best way I can look at it. I do believe in archangels, Jeffrey. Well, the work culture is weird and stressful. Yeah. What brought me to become a reverend? I'm a reverend in the Spiritualist Church of New York City. And I originally just took the courses because I thought they were interesting and I wanted to learn from, I like learning about religions and spirituality and all of that stuff. It's always been something of interest to me since I was young. And then I went back, and so I started those in 2009, 2010 maybe, but then I had my first child and so I couldn't finish the courses. And then I didn't, and then after my third child was born, when she was like 3 months old, I reached out and I was like, hey, I see that you're running these and you told me I could come back and take them, like pick up where I left off. And my mentor who taught the classes and who taught, like who I took all my psychic development courses from, he's like, absolutely. We start in a month. And I was like, oh, I like the way it was on the computer. I thought that it was like not starting until the next year. So it would have been perfect. My youngest would have been old enough and she was breastfeeding. He's like, bring your daughter. So, and even then, like, I just like helping guide people and teach them about what I know about my own spiritual journey. Maybe it'll help you with your insight, but it also like take what works for you. Like, you don't have to, like, what I say isn't, I'm just going by my own experiences and my own understandings. And sometimes they change. And like my idea of law of attraction and manifestations changed over the years. And my idea about needing to be protected has changed over the years. I mean, allow yourself room for growth. Can the soul never make it to the world come back in other people? Like if you have a miscarriage or an abortion? Yeah. I think people get really caught up. I've done so many readings for women who have held burdens of having a miscarriage 20, 30 years ago and just been distraught and heartbroken. So like anybody who thinks that's an easy choice is kidding themselves. It is not an easy choice. Even if you know it's the best choice for you, it doesn't mean it's an easy choice. So like we got to like take the pressure off of that one. And you also need to take the pressure off yourself. If a soul is meant to be here, it will be here. I've taken care of children that were the products of missed abortions. If a soul is meant to be here, it will be here. Sometimes we are meant to have that experience of loss and struggle. So remember that too. Will John Mayer get married this year? No. I kind of feel like he's going to be more like George Clooney, like where he meets somebody, but it's like older. He's got his stuff too. Like we all got to remember that. Like everybody's got their story. So we think like celebrities are so magical and like, cause they're in the eye, whatever. They got their stuff too. They're just people just like you and me. They're just trying to figure out the world too. Their job is just a little different, a little weirder, I guess, weirder-ish. I don't know. Oh, Tell your daughters hello and Happy New Year. So for PTSD, I will tell you what I've learned from my own working on my own trauma and my own triggers and things. As you heal and you start to understand it, you're still going to have your triggers. Hopefully they get less and not as terrible, and you start to learn to manage them a little easier. I saw something I follow like therapists, and I follow people from all different backgrounds, marketing, everything else, because we're filters when we do readings. I don't always have, like, when I do readings for somebody who's in finance, I'm like, I don't know how your world works. So this is the best way I can describe it from what I know, try and apply it to what you know. So I try and learn about other facets and other areas of work because it gives me a broader language base, I guess is the best way to explain it when I do readings, in order to be able to help explain, like, when I get messages, because I don't just read for spiritual people. I don't just read for people who are in medicine. So I like to learn about other things. I was rambling. I'll find my way back. Do your thing. So for PTSD, so I followed this woman, and she said, and I didn't know this, and I have a medicine background, so I thought this was fascinating. The reason why certain antidepressants take longer to work, and most of them, they say, figure about 3 to 4 weeks to start working, is because they're actually changing your brain's awareness from negative aspects of life to positive aspects of life. And my brain went, this is why self-concept and affirmations is huge, because you're shifting neural pathways, right? So when you're constantly doing, when they talk about gratitude, and I think this is kind of the concept of, trying to think of the type of therapy. It's like about changing your thought process and how you see things. So I think my sense is, for you, when you have PTSD, it's really important when you're in those moments of like triggering, to remind yourself that you're safe, to get up and move so that your body gets out of that flight or flight mode. Even maybe look into like somatic psoas release. That might be really beneficial because your trauma gets stored in your psoas muscle. Maybe look into that. That might be helpful for you. So here's the thing about predicting your own life. You can predict things in your own life. It's hard. Why is it hard? Because you have to be able to separate. It has to be in a calm thing. So the times when I've got really lots of clarity about my own things that are going to happen in my own life, it's always been because it's like been like sort of a peripheral thing that comes through. If I'm in a state of like being sort of in my lower self, my ego, my shadow, whatever, that angsty area, it's hard to get clarity. So I need an outside, like, can you help me, or can you give me validation? And even then, sometimes when I'm getting stuff like on a like a calm state, I still sometimes want validation on it because we're human and that's what we do. So you can predict things. There are certain things that you just know. But the thing about your intuition is it's also really helps you, like, this is a silly one, but like I would get, like, when my kids were wearing diapers still, like, bring diapers and extra clothes today because they're going to have a blowout. I always would get those ones. I was like, sure, packing extra, because I didn't always pack extra. I've gotten things about life being really different in a year from now. I think I got that about a year ago, so I'm still waiting to see what happens with that. But I've gotten things about health changes that kind of come up, but I get them in weird ways, so it's not always super clear. When I ask certain things, sometimes I do, but I really do have to be in a calm state about it. What mine teaches you is how to develop your intuition and your language and how you communicate with others. So, like, say you see a tree and you're like, well, I don't know, I just saw a tree. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make that a bigger message. Like, let me show you how to do that. Like, so you're not always going, what does a tree mean? Well, this person says a butterfly means this, so it means this. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't mean that for me. So that's not like, that's what it means for them. That's their language. That's their dictionary. And teach you how to build your own language. So you learn with me, and then you learn how to keep growing from there too. You've learned the tools that you need to keep growing on your own. I don't know where souls go after we pass, but I know that they're not here. Like they can be in and out. Like it's not about, and they can be in different time frames. And it's sort of, I don't know. And anybody who goes, well, this is what happens and this is where they go, I'm like, are you sure? Because it's not a hard and fast thing. And I would be, I mean, how silly would it be to be like, this is the way it is? Because I don't fully know where that place is or what exactly it is, or it's because it's not really a plane of existence like this one. So I think I'm going to bounce off now because it's now 1 hour and 20 minutes. Hello, time loss. Speaking of trauma, I remember choking feeling you felt when you answered my question last Sunday. I can't believe I went through some scary stuff as a child. Oh, I'm sorry, Allie. So, May, I hope that was a helpful answer. I mean, I hope it's hard to say, like, if you ask anybody, some other people on here have been in my circles, and even some of the most advanced people say they won't read for themselves. I have friends who won't read for friends or family because they feel like they can't separate the and be unbiased. I will read for certain friends and family. And it's more dependent on how I know they'll receive the message, because I know I can read clearly just for anybody else. Except for like my kids, sometimes that's a little difficult. But all right, y'all. Happy New Year. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. I like doing these general readings like this. I'm on TikTok. Come find me on TikTok. I know I said I would never do it because I hate TikTok. I still sort of hate TikTok because it's like this giant weird, there's like a lot of like, I watched some guy do paranormal. Like I really think those paranormal ghost hunting things are kind of weird unless they're helping. But if they're just sort of like, hey, say something, I'm like, well, how are you helping anything there? It was nice meeting you, Horseman. Please like and subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow. I'll be back doing my live readings. It's $12 now a question. 30% will go to, so we're back to 30% going to the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, where every dollar provides for 3 meals. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. On TikTok, I'm doing like just kind of teaching little things here and there. Like this, I'm doing a series right now on self-care for the highly sensitive person. Some of it may seem obvious, but whatever. I'm going to just talk about experiences that I've had, and talking about intuition and connecting with your own intuition and all of that stuff. So I will see some of you tomorrow. I hopefully have a wonderful evening and Happy New Year.